So we're in your United States history book, starting with chapter 1, and we're now on to a new world to explore. What was this world? Oh, you've got it, America. Well, Christopher Columbus, was looking for a new trade route to be able to sail west to the Orient. And he did so, but in doing this, he found there was a whole new world. Although he didn't know it at the time, he accidentally bumped into it, thinking it was Indonesia, thinking it was the West Indies. So here are some pictures. But let's get going. Let's get started on this new world exploration. The age of exploration. Well, trade routes were very difficult, slow, and dangerous to the Far East. You see that map on the left there, or on the right. There were bands of robbers on the land and sea, and the Italians controlled the water routes through the Mediterranean Sea. So now the nations had dreams of a new water route to the east by going west. So here we see the Silk Road there and all the bandits and how hard it was to get to the east to trade. And everyone knew there was great wealth in the east, as we know during the Crusades, the Crusaders bringing home, and they knew of Marco Polo and all of these things in the east and wanted to get there an easier way. Leading the way was Portugal. Portugal's Prince Henry the Navigator, they called him. Very important because he had a navigation school with expert map makers and new inventions. He also had an observatory there to study the stars and sun so they'd be able to navigate by them. And the invention of a new ship, the caravel, to sail against the wind. He also would send ships first to explore the west coast of Africa, thinking as navigating around Africa, they could do that to get to the east, to get to the riches that they knew lied in the areas of where China and India and those areas. But his goal in the beginning was thinking of the coast of Africa. So he sees some pictures here. You see the picture of the statue of Prince Henry the Navigator leading the way. His motivation for exploration was gold, God, and glory. Putting gold first. He was looking for gold. And doing this is why he set up this navigation team. And they came from other countries, especially from Italy, because there were a lot of ship builders and ship captains and those sailors that were interested from Italy. But they would have to go, of course, to Portugal and Spain to get any funding, just like Columbus did. Portuguese explorers. We need to know a little bit about them, right? Well, the two main guys that you need to know. Bart Dias in 1488 sailed to the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. You can see the picture there of that map, how Dias is there, and he sailed all the way down to the tip of Africa, as you see right here, the very tip of Africa. And so knowing that you could get there, they didn't think that they could get there, and especially Africa being very primitive in the primitive tribes. So Bart Dias, he was born a nobleman in Portugal, and he was first to figure out how far South Africa extended, and he sailed from Portugal along the west coast there of Africa down to that tip of Africa, the Cape of Good Hope. And he showed people it might be possible to reach Asia by sailing south and around Africa. They never knew that before. They were always afraid to do that. But Vasco da Gama followed in his way. And he too came out of Portugal, out of Prince Henry's navigation school. And Vasco da Gama in 1498, thinking of 1492, we have 1492 is Columbus, but in 1498, Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa to India. He made 3 voyages. You see da Gama here? 3 voyages all the way around here, around Africa to India. So basically seeing though that these voyages were pretty long and difficult, and there were a lot of stops there were in Africa that were very dangerous stops. But Vasco da Gama, he took 3 voyages and many men. So just remember these Portuguese guys and think they were the ones that going around Africa, right? So you think of the Portuguese guys, they really, they weren't really Portuguese, they were really Italian, but needless to say, they, well, Diaz was Portuguese, but da Gama came out of Italy, I should say. But they both were great explorers to go around Africa. Then, of course, we have Christopher Columbus's dream. In 1451 to 1506 is when he lived. I like this for saying that his life has more imagination than we can carry in our dreams. And Columbus had the dream of sailing west for many years. And he thought about it probably daily of his dreams of going to find that route that would go to the Far East by sailing west. So he thought of it, he calculated it out, although his calculations were wrong. He believed the earth was round. At that time, everyone believed it was flat, right? But he believed it was round. But the thing about it that he believed the earth was much smaller than it actually is. He didn't have any idea that there was a whole nother hemisphere out there with America. He thought that he could sail directly to the Orient. He underestimated the percentage of earth covered by water. He thought that it was 6 parts land to 1 part sea. I don't know where he got that, but in actuality, it's 7 parts sea and 3 parts land. There's way more sea than he thought. And the journey was longer than he thought it would be, of course, and that was a problem because as he was journeying out there, of course, the sailors would want to mutiny. His crew was not content, thinking, how far are we going to go? Forever? So the journey would be a lot longer. He approached the nations first to fund him. So, of course, he went to Portugal first. But Portugal at that time was busy with thinking about going around Africa. They weren't Prince Henry, and they weren't so hepped on Columbus's dream of sailing west. And of course, he went to Spain. But in Spain, they were fighting the Moors. Ferdinand and Isabella, they had a war going on. So Spain really didn't have the funding for Columbus. So he would have to wait for 6 years. He went to England and to France, and both England and France refused him. So his dream did not look like it was like a death of a dream for 6 years, over 6 years in actuality, before he could have the funding to have a ship that he could sail towards west and end up in America. The voyage of discovery happened in 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Spain, after 6 years, they were done fighting the Moors, the reconquistadors, or reconquest they called it. And after 6 years, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella drove the Moors out. And so now they were ready to consider what to do, how they were going to explore and how they were going to get to the Far East. And so they remembered Columbus. And so they brought Columbus back, and they decided to sponsor Columbus's expedition west. The 3 ships, of course, were the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And they left on August 3rd, 1492. They had to stop in the Canary Islands for repairs, and that's on the way. As you see, I think you can see the picture there. You can see where they stopped in the Canary Islands here as they went down this way here. You can see both those maps there. A map at the bottom too, I hope, there. Okay. They stopped in the Canary Islands, and then they sailed on into October. Remember, they left in August, and the sailors now became fearful, and they threatened Columbus, said, if you don't go back, we're going to take over the ship, So Columbus said, give me 3 days. On October 10th, he says, give me 3 days, and if we don't find land in 3 days, will turn back. He had to do that. So, but 2 days later, on October 12th, 1492, the crew indeed sighted a horizon. They sighted land. Land ho. Yes. And Columbus believed they had reached the East Indies, the Indies in the East. So when he did see people there, he called them Indians because he thought he was in the Indies. But really they had landed in the Bahamas on San Salvador, which means Holy Savior. Some pictures of him landing, that picture up there of Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. Columbus's later voyages. He had 4 voyages, so 3 more. Columbus further discovered and he explored Cuba and Hispaniola. And he returned to Spain a hero first. And so they gave him 3 more voyages and financed him, the king and the queen. So he visited 3 more islands on the coast of South America and along the coast of South America. And then one thing Columbus shouldn't have done is that he became the governor of Santo Domingo on Hispaniola. That was the island he founded. He was a very poor governor. He was much a harsh taskmaster, they thought. And finally, he was arrested. They couldn't take Columbus anymore. So they arrested him in chains and sent him back to Spain. When he got to Spain, of course, King and Queen, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella released him, but not to be the governor, because they realized that he was not cut out to be a governor. He was a great explorer, but not a great governor. So Columbus was unsuccessful in his 4th voyage. He went across, he was unsuccessful in his 4th voyage, and then he died, and he was frustrated and forgotten in Spain. People had forgotten about Columbus until way after he died, right? But now he is remembered for his relentlessness and his determination and his discovery of the New World. Poor Columbus never really knew that he discovered a new world. He thought he was somewhere in Indonesia, in the East Indies still. So you can see the picture down here, kind of, I don't know if you can see it very well, but you can see his voyages, all of his voyages that go across from Spain over here to the area, kind of the South America here, but the area of what is considered, around, Cuba and Puerto Rico and Hispaniola and Dominican Republic, that kind of area there. See Columbus there, saddened, you see, and you can see how happy he was in the beginning. So Columbus had some issues, we know, but I believe we'll see Columbus in heaven because he was trying to trust his life into God's hands. The naming of America. Well, how did America get its name? Amerigo Vespucci was his name. He lived in 1454 to 1512, and he was another Italian sailor. Remember, Columbus was Italian. So another Italian sailor, but he made 4 voyages, same as Columbus, to explore after Columbus. When he arrived, though, he claimed this new land as he recognized this is not the East Indies. This is a new land. As he went through South America and saw the land and realized there's nothing there over in Asia comparable to this land. So he claimed this was a new land, and he wrote letters of his explorations. And so as he wrote he went to this map maker, and in 1507, this map maker in Germany named this new land America in his honor. Not Columbus. Columbus was forgotten, remember? And now we have Amerigo Vespucci, claiming this was a new world. These regions are a new world that our ancestors have had no knowledge of. That's what Amerigo Vespucci said. The land of demarcation. Okay, Columbus brought Spain into this new world, right? So now Spain claimed it. Whatever Columbus claimed, they claimed. And Portugal grew concerned. So the Portugal, of course, they were exploring Africa, remember, but Portugal sent explorers too. So they sent the explorer Pedro Cabral, and he had claimed Brazil. He went to explore the American region. As we can see here, he explored Brazil, claiming Brazil for Portugal, not Spain. But Spain controlled the rest of the whole New World at that time. So the Pope, here's a picture of the Pope. So the Pope Alexander the Sixth drew a line on the map. See the line drawn here? Line drawn here. He drew a line in the map because he didn't want Portugal and Spain to go at war against each other on which land they could have, or which land could be for Spain and which land could be for Portugal, right? So because they both were Catholic, Portugal and Spain, he drew this line so that they could stay in their area of exploration. So he did. As he did, not really knowing the map so well, he put down the latitude there, but he called this the line of demarcation, and Portugal to stay on its side of the land and Spain on its side of that line. In 1493, the line of demarcation was 100 miles west of the Azores, and later it was moved slightly. You can see where it was moved here. So it says all lands to the east of this line would be claimed by Portugal. All lands to the west of this would be claimed by Spain. Just remember the Pope said this. So after Pedro Cabral went from Portugal and claimed Brazil. Even now, if you go to Brazil, what language does people in Brazil speak? They don't speak Spanish. They speak Portuguese, So Portugal has a big effect on Brazil, mainly Brazil. Practically all the rest of South America, of course, they speak Spanish, and they have a Spanish heritage. So that was pretty important. So let's stop there.